Brad, a very good morning to you. A victorious week for your Vandy Commodores, Brad.
Joseph Bulovas, the kicker, was at Alabama, and he wanted to transfer somewhere where he could have some high-leverage kicks in huge games, and he got that and secured the victory for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I don't know how much that gets you in any sort of power rankings or anything, a win against Connecticut, but nonetheless, you take it. You take it, and now you get your brains beat in by Florida this week, so good stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and let's get to a look on the inside and a look at the numbers. Quite simply, what does the data yield, and what does logic tell you? I don't think Mike Tomlin will ever do it, but should Ben Roethlisberger continue to be the quarterback of these Pittsburgh Steelers?
Frankly, I'm not sure if the answer is yes, but I think part of the issue is they don't seem to have confidence that the answer at quarterback is on the roster, whether that be Mason Rudolph or if they try to experiment with a Dwayne Haskins, whatever the case may be. I think for them, if they had somebody that they were interested in, someone they were excited about and thought, maybe even if they weren't as good of a player, maybe if they were dynamic with their legs and could do different things, then maybe they would. But because that's not the case, I think they'll probably let Ben ride it out. But is that an ideal scenario? Do I think he's still a top 32 arm in the NFL as of right now? It's a question. It's a fair question to ask.
According to quarterback rating, of all the QBs with 100 attempts or more through the first 4 weeks, Brad, he is third worst. Then the only two worse than him are rookie first-round picks, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. Is that what the PFF grades say as well?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, his grades are not good. He's not pushing the ball downfield at all. I think the issue with the two is that he's not throwing the ball in the middle of the field, so he's just not really testing defenses or stretching defenses out. He has our 32nd quarterback grade, 52.2 passing grade. So it's basically saying he's effectively a replacement level quarterback, and he's ahead of a very short list of players he's ahead of. So, the solution at that position needs to come eventually. That much we do know. Whether they try to find something this season will be interesting, but I would be surprised.
You can text us, Edgar Snyder and Associates fan text line 412-928-9370. Edgar Snyder and Associates reminds you to text responsibly. Pro Football Focus, Brad Spielberger joining us. Something I found insanely intriguing and that you guys did and you collected and crunched all the data, if you'd explain further and go into it. When there's a notion here that, he doesn't have any time to throw. The offensive line is bad. When he's kept clean, Ben Roethlisberger, and even in a clean pocket, and when he has time to throw, he still hasn't been very good, correct?
Yes, that's something that we do like to break down because we find much more stability in a player's ability to replicate what he does in a clean pocket. So when there's no quarterback pressure, when he has time to scan the field, go through his progressions, we find that how a quarterback performs in that facet of play is more likely to continue as opposed to a guy, running around, dancing around, making some crazy out-of-structure plays. Odds are he's not going to be able to continue to do that. Ben is he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL under pressure. As soon as pressure gets near him, he just kind of collapses. And he has our lowest grade under pressure. When kept clean, he's also, he is near the back of the group, a little bit better, above 70 when clean, but he's still kind of in this cluster with your Andy Daltons, your Carson Wentz, Jacoby Brissett, Taylor Heinicke. Like he is not in good company at either, aspect.
Brad Spielberger, Pro Football Focus, with us every Tuesday at 8 o'clock here on the Fan Morning Show. To my eyes, Brad, it looked like the offensive line, although the improvements have been very incremental, very marginal in nature, it does feel like week to week there have been minor incremental improvements, and this may have been their best week of work to this point. Again, that's a low bar that they're trying to hurdle, but again, what did the PFF grades tell you guys about the Steelers' offensive line and whether that progression has actually been happening or not?
Yeah, so I thought they were better just by watching it myself. I thought they were better in pass protection. I think Dan Moore Jr. Let's have a couple issues with Rashawn Gary, who's a former first-round pick in Green Bay, but I thought for the most part held up his end of the offensive line, and I think this interior does continue to grow week in and week out. So I would say that yes, they played better. I do think the Packers have a weak front. They've not been able to generate pressure really at all against a handful of opponents. even the Detroit Lions offensive line kind of just shut them down entirely. They are missing Zadarius Smith, their best pass rusher. But I do think the Steelers' offensive line played better in pass pro. In run blocking, I think they still are struggling a bit in run blocking, but not awful, just not really creating these big lanes and some of the things we saw Le'Veon Bell be able to do with his patience and sitting back there forever, that is no longer the case in Pittsburgh.
Follow us. We're on Twitter at 937TheFan, driven by Jim Shorkey Kia, Wexford, North Huntington, Uniontown, Pittsburgh's #1 Kia dealer. Visit ShorkeyKia.com. Brad, I know it's very early. It's in its elementary stages, Najee Harris's career. What do you think that, in just looking at some of the data, and again using logic as well, what do you think he grows into? Does he grow into a breakaway back? Does he grow into a contact back? Is he a hybrid back? His running style? What when we look at it in 3-4 years from now, what is he?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think he will always be a contact back. I think he's going to be a guy that can navigate the mess. Can get the ball in the backfield, and will be able to find the hole and get around a bunch of, if there's mayhem up front of him, he'll be able to navigate it. And I think that's just who he is. He's not slow. I'm not saying he can't be a breakaway player, but that's just not his game. I think he's going to be operating more laterally before he gets to the line of scrimmage, and then maybe can break some runs off. But I do love him in the pass game. I think what's unique about Najee Harris, and that you can't compare him to, a Derrick Henry or whoever people want to compare him to, when he catches the ball in space, he flips his hips very well. He's very clean. He has clean hands, and he gets upfield quickly. I think a lot of these big guys that can still catch the ball, their issue is they then have to build ahead of steam and kind of get going. I like his ability to accelerate quickly out of the catch. And I think he will be a dynamic player for many years to come.
Brad, has Minkah Fitzpatrick graded out through the first 4 weeks the way a two-time All-Pro safety should grade out?
So he's got some grades that have been controversial. I think some folks have kind of been upset with how poor the grades for him have been, frankly. So I guess the answer to that would, I guess, be no. His grades have not been good at all. But, I do think that we saw in the game, for example, in special teams play where him and Joe Hayden are breaking up the ball by a second, getting called for the offsides, but were extremely close to scoring a touchdown there. I think he's been close in a couple plays. I recall a play, I want to say it was a Randall Cobb reception, where he was close to making a big play there as well. I think he's close. The grades have not looked good so far, but I think he's making plays on the ball. He's been around the ball a bunch, and I think he might make some of those big play, turnover-type Minkah Fitzpatrick plays and right the ship.
All right, I don't know if you have the statistical breakdown, but you got to help me here. And just bear with me, it's a little bit of an elongated question. When it's 4th and 11, or say even 4th and 6 or something, and you throw a flat pass at the scrimmage line and you ask somebody to break 39 tackles, is that a high percentage play or not?
Extremely low percentage play. I believe I saw a stat somewhere online that there have been, I think, 6 instances of passes on 4th down where the pass was thrown behind the line of scrimmage in the entire NFL, and Ben Roethlisberger, I think, has 3 of those 6 are him, because most of the time on 4th down, quarterbacks are trying to throw beyond the sticks. Not a high percentage play, especially when I think everyone kind of sees it coming. I even saw a breakdown of the one this past week to Najee Harris on the right side of the field, where essentially pre-snap, the defense kind of funneled that being the only option. The breakdown I saw, essentially the guy said they knew Ben was going to go there with the football pretty much before the snap even happened. So that also does not help.
No, that does not. It wasn't a PFF number, so I apologize for citing it, but I saw a graph yesterday that showed they are the second worst in targeting the sticks in conversion opportunities. It's no surprise that the numbers from PFF are also that bad. Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus with us every Tuesday morning at 8 here on the Fan Morning Show. What about those absences on the defensive line? Tyson Alualu, after leaving early in the Raiders game. Stephon Tuitt has yet to really show his face at the facility since the regular season started, let alone practice, let alone play. How are the guys behind them grading out? I know Isaiah Buggs had a really good grade a couple weeks ago, I want to say, but Chris Wormley and Isaiah Buggs, and it doesn't feel like those are the answers behind players of the caliber of Alualu and Tuitt.
Yeah, no, that's I think an underrated storyline in Pittsburgh is the loss of, when you're losing multiple guys and good players, and Tuitt and Ingram for a bit and Watt for a bit, and when you have kind of a multitude of injuries at one spot, then it can expose some weaknesses. So, yeah, I mean, those guys are not grading particularly well. Buggs is the leader of that group at 67.2. Is great for the season as a pass rusher, on a relatively small sample size, but he has gotten 3 pressures on the quarterback. But for the most part, the rest of that group is really just kind of around 60, meaning they're doing their job. They're not really generating much pressure on the quarterback or really doing a whole lot. It's been the Cameron Hayward show. He's been phenomenal for our grading, I think, for anyone's kind of analysis. But yeah, I think we talked about this earlier in the season, but what makes them so special is the fact that you have to account for, 4 or 5 guys on a snap if they're all healthy and all playing together. When you can key up, when you can double a Cam Hayward on the inside, or when you can maybe, chip TJ Watt with a tight end or a running back and do that consistently because those are the only guys you're worrying about, it can make things easier on you. So those young guys just need to develop, need to grow. I mean, Pittsburgh has shown time and time again they can develop talent at those spots, but it does take time.
Only about a quarter way through the season. Real quick, who wins the AFC North if you had to guess right now?
I'll stick with my Cleveland Browns preseason pick. I think they're legit, even though Baker did not look good at all against Minnesota. Really, I think one of his worst games in a while, but I'll still stick with the Cleveland Browns.
Brad, you're the best. We'll talk again next week. We appreciate it, as always. And, again, next week we'll chat.
Thank you, guys. Talk soon.
Anchor down.
Really, I love talking to him. He provides so much knowledge. Yeah. That stat about Ben throwing it half the times that everybody in the league has behind. Now, that was just on 4th down plays.
Yes.
It could be 4th and 1. It could be 4th and 14. And theirs were 4th and 5 and 4th and 11, or 4th and 10 from the 11, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that it was like 4th and 1 and you're throwing it to Juju and say, go fight and get a yard. We're shaking our head. You can see it on our camera.
We're all shaking our
The Fan.
It doesn't make any sense, Colin. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense.